Well, thank you everyone for joining us for Stories from the Frontline. I'm really excited to be doing this event with some colleagues who are as passionate about Yammer, Teams and Microsoft 365 as I am, and because you'll hear some stories about people doing real work on the front line using these tools. I am Mark Woodrow. I'm an evangelist for Engage Squared, and I'd like to welcome those people that are part of our business user groups in Melbourne and Sydney. Now it's all virtual using Teams Live. Before we get underway, I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. Now we're obviously people are joining virtually from different areas around Australia and beyond. I'm here in our head office in Sydney, which Sydney is part of the Gadigal people's lands, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands, and also elsewhere where you're joining and our other speakers are joining, and we'd like to pay our respects to elders past, present and future. Our agenda today is action-packed. We are joined by our friends at SWOOP Analytics, the best analytics tools you'll get for Yammer and Teams. And we also have Kim from NRMA, Bailey from Medibank, and Sharon's is an ex-journalist, so she'll be asking some questions. Can I remind everyone that we'd like to be collaborative as we can be in a live event, so you need to use the chat function. If you've got questions, we'll try and take a few as we go, and certainly we'll have time at the end to answer your questions. So use the chat function, and also I know that the speakers here are very engaging and would catch up with you. Another point, you can also reach out to us in Engage, and also Sharon and Emily at SWOOP. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over the facilitation of the questions to my good friend Sharon Dawson, and you can take it from here, Sharon.
Thanks so much, Mark, and welcome everybody. As Mark said, we really want to make this a conversational webinar, so please feel free to just put your questions into the Q&A section, and Mark can just jump in as you're hearing from the speakers and ask those questions. So this is all about stories from the front line, and I think we'd all agree that people are our organisation's greatest asset, and frontline workers are usually the face of our organisation. It's for that reason alone, it's so important that frontline workers know what's happening in the business and that messages are reaching them. Kim actually said to me during the week, she said it's about forming a human connection in the digital world. I think that's really important. So today we're going to hear how some of Australia's most iconic brands are using collaboration and communication to connect their communities. And I'm sure you're going to leave this webinar with some tips and ideas that you can implement into your organisation. I think you're also going to leave feeling pretty inspired by some of the communities you'll hear about that are at these organisations. So as Mark said, with me today we have Kim Tunbridge, who's the Internal Communication Manager at NRMA, and Bailey Cunningham, who's the Employee Communications Advisor from Medibank. I don't think I need to introduce NRMA and Medibank to you. They're pretty well known around Australia. And Mark's been working closely with St John WA, and he has some great stories to share about the ambulance service, especially during the pandemic and also during Perth's recent snap lockdown. So we're going to start by talking to Kim from NRMA. Kim, could you please start with a quick introduction and tell us about what role you play at NRMA and why frontline workers are so important to being the face of NRMA?
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. Even though we do say that the NRMA is a very well-known business and a very well-known brand, just to clarify, we are NRMA from what you would traditionally know from our motoring side of things, not the insurance arm of NRMA. They're our brothers and sisters across at IAG. So my role is looking at motoring and membership, our motoring and membership organisation within the broader NRMA group. Within the broader NRMA group, we also have parks and resorts, we also have transport, we have a range of different things. So we're more than just motoring these days. But specifically, I focus on internal comms within our motoring and membership business, where we're all about servicing our members at the side of the road. We're all about helping people. We're focused on how do we add more value to their lives as well through our Blue offering as well, which is an app where you can get great benefits, travel, everything like that. So more than just roadside. But I guess obviously everybody knows roadside as the face of the NRMA and as the brand of the NRMA, and that's where we leverage the most pride of our people, is our passion and commitment to help. So within our organisation, the Motoring and Membership Organisation, we have 800 employees. They're a mix of people who are, on the front line out actually helping our members, all the way through to in our back office, our call centres as well. So a range of different groups. The NRMA Motoring and Membership has some incredible communication channels that are set up, and were set up, when I joined the NRMA, I was just thrilled to see the different comms channels and the strength of those channels that the NRMA had in place. I thought that this was probably best practice in my 17-year career that I've seen. In saying that, though, we face the same challenges as every other organisation. There's still the reliance on email, and there's still the reliance on those one-way communication channels, which is why the use of Teams and the use of Yammer is just so critical within our organisation, because that's two-way. That's how we engage our people. That's how we align our people to our strategy, to the work that we do. But it's also how we create an employee experience that then impacts that customer experience that we want. We want our people to be these amazing brand advocates and ambassadors for what we do. And that's something that can really be seen, quite a lot. So the question kind of came, how did things change as a result of COVID? Obviously, for us, things changed dramatically, and we're going to be talking a little bit later about, a comms project, or a project that was run as part of that as well. But as things turn to working from home, and as you can see, I'm still working from home, and as a result of the great work that's been done by so many people, from a people and culture perspective, comms perspective within the NRMA, we will continue to have this hybrid model and be able to give people the opportunities to work the way that they want to work. But specifically, looking at Frontline, I started work with our roadside team probably about 1.5 years ago now, and our roadside team were really looking at different ways to engage them. A lot of them were kind of happy to stand back a little bit and sit back a little bit in what it looked like from a comms perspective. And what we've been able to do is, I probably won't jump onto that just yet. What we've been able to do is look at how do we engage them, and how do we utilize Yammer, and how do we utilize Teams. But my role specifically focuses on leader communication, and how do we get our leaders to actually engage their people, to deliver the message, to own the message, because we know that regardless of the channel, it's all about how we connect as humans, how we utilize pride, but more specifically, as comms people, we can write fantastic comms any day of the week, and we can deliver that ourselves any day of the week, but it's how we utilize our leaders to be delivering those messages and engaging their people, because we know that employees across the globe, the main communication channel that they connect with is their manager and is their leader. So we focused on how do we utilize Yammer, Teams, to actually build that leader visibility and presence at a time when we were all working from home, but also ongoing.
So Kim, I think this is a great segue into, I guess, maybe I'd call it a tool almost, or a document that you've developed that would help leaders connect with the patrols. And when we spoke earlier this week, we were saying it's sort of a bit like the pub test, although you've put a different name on it, a barbecue conversation kit. But you know, the whole idea where you would have a campaign where your frontline workers, when they're at their barbecue with their mates or they're at the pub, it would actually engage them so much that they will actually be starting to talk about this in their personal lives as well. Can you enlighten us about this barbecue conversation kit that you've created? And then also you had a fantastic example of how it ended up in a safety campaign, and that you've been able to measure that success by less injuries at work.
Yeah, so with the team that we have within Roadside, they call a spade, down to earth, tell me what I need to know, tell me what my job needs to look like. But they also have this incredible pride. And if we're approaching things if we're having this corporate messaging and this corporate language, which is what we kind of called, well, for those that don't like to swear because, you know, there's HR about, we can call it badly structured comms. Or for those of us who just like to call a spade, it's bullshit. So a lot, you know, some comms that was not having an impact with our frontline was that bullshit communication. It was irrelevant, it was boring, it was just jargon, it was telling people what they had to do. And who likes being told what they have to do, especially when our demographic at the Roadside is the average age is about 54 years old and male. And so nobody, any age, likes to be told what to do. So it was really about how do we take this message that we're trying to deliver that previously might have been do this way, this, you know, and not even a why. How do we take it to a barbecue conversation? So yes, Sharon was right, it is the pub test, but obviously we don't drink at the NRMA, well, not within work hours, of course. So then we took it across and we said, how do we make it the barbecue conversation? Because that was one of our strongest comms channels that we used to have pre-COVID, was we would actually organise barbecues for our patrols. And then they were having a chat about what was going on. They were catching up with mates, and they really are like a family. So it was like, we need to be talking to them in a way that's engaging, entertaining, it's storytelling, it's inspiring. And that was a really important approach to take. And so I'll cross across to the next slide. So what I did was I ran a session with all of our Roadside leaders, and we even kind of put together what we called a bullshit brigade as well as part of that. And we kind of, you know, we even got the bullshit button. It was so much fun. And we kind of said, you know, like, what's the message that we're trying to deliver to our people? And what I did was I took each leader through this 4-step process, and I showed them, first of all, what's the why? For those people who love Simon Sinek, you know, you would understand this. If you don't love Simon Sinek, watch the video, what's the why? It's what it's all about. So what's the why? Why are you doing this thing? Step 2, who's the audience? Okay, so if it is that audience of, you know, the 54-year-old male, how are you going to connect? And how you connect is what's in it for me. Because at the end of the day, if you're not telling me what's in it for me, I'm not listening. So what's in it for me as part of that? And then the 4th step is what do you want me to know, feel, or do? So what I said to these leaders is, before you do any form of communication, whether that be a union negotiation, whether that be an email comms, even though we were trying to move away from that significantly at the time, go through these 4 steps, but also make sure that you actually look at what this achieves. So we had a conversation quite a while ago, actually, with the safety team, and it was about, how do we look at the challenge that we've got around lifting batteries and, you know, the potential strains that can occur from lifting car batteries because they're not light. And so it was discussed. And so what we did was we had a little bit of a chat, and, you know, a couple of the more traditional leaders were like, well, we just need to tell them that that's their job and that's what they need to do. And, you know, and then we had a conversation, we said, all right, let's run through the barbecue kit. You know, what's the why for lifting batteries properly? Why? Because we want our people to go home. We want our people to go home safer and, you know, and just as healthy as what they arrived at work. We want them to be warming up. We care about them. We care about their health, and we don't want any of our people to be rushing to lift things and to be causing them injuries, because we genuinely care. So that was the why. And then once we really landed on that and nailed that, then what I did was I then took a little bit of a step back as a comms person, because right then I could have gone, all right, let's film this video, let's get this done, let's get this up. But instead, I looked at a couple of key leaders within that roadside business and had a couple of sessions with them around how can we really connect. And how we can really connect is actually by having a video that is of a patrol that they know and respect, and showing them how to actually lift that battery in a video. That was then put on Yammer. And then not only was that utilised through Yammer, that was then utilised in each of their one-on-one meetings with patrols. So in every patrol meeting and session, they were watching this video and they were seeing and learning from their mate, from someone who's in the family. And the messaging that came from the leader was, because we care about you and we want you to go home safely. And it just completely changed the game as to how we connected with Frontline versus telling them, we have these KPIs around not having any lost time injuries, and it changed how people felt and how people see it. And then we've also noticed as a result a decline in those injuries. It is early days as to giving you an exact number, I'll be honest, but we've noticed a difference. But we've also looked at the stats of how many people have watched that and the comments that have come through, and now we're actually looking at a series of different videos as part of that.
Such a great story, Kim, and just that really practical advice that's going to help your frontline workers day to day. So thanks for sharing that. Another one, another story for you to share. We all know that NRMA is about HELP. Now, I think that might be the IAG line.
That's okay. We borrow and steal from each other.
But the helping culture, I guess, at NRMA was never more on display than during COVID-19, during the lockdown, starting this time last year, when NRMA employees asked the executive and their leaders how they can help, and there were lots of thinking outside of the box of ways that you could help the most vulnerable in our community. So you've told me about this project, which I found really inspirational, and on this one, Kim, you can also show us the data from SWOOP as to how engaged your employees were.
Yeah, so obviously COVID hit. We got a group of people together, and this was why this was really special was this was across the entire business. So we have Thrifty as part of our business. We had Thrifty come together, Parks and Resorts. We had our motoring team. We had everybody from across the business come together and just go, how can we help? There's got to be a way that we can help. And so what I want to show you is just a 1-minute video that was created. So this was created by myself with a video, with a sensational video person that we've got internally. And this video then formed the foundation for all of the comms for Project Lighthorse. And we called it Project Lighthorse because in the days, it was in the war times when people were needing food, and we had the women's auxiliary, and we helped. And so it was calling on that beautiful legacy of how we've helped for the past 100 years. So I'll really quickly show you this 1-minute video.
Community means family.
Well, I think community means us. It's kind of everyone.
It just gives you hope.
How we can help our neighbour, how we can help the local schools.
I think community is just a collection of people coming together.
Working together, supporting each other and lifting each other up and looking out for each other.
Yeah, it's a feeling of belonging, an extended family.
I'll just stop sharing. my team skills I actually attribute to somebody who's on the call, Mr. Pete Johns. But as you can see, so Project Lighthorse, we were so what we did was we formed the project team, we got together, we said, how can we help? We then started working with a range of different groups. So we started work with to find different avenues to assist. Meals on Wheels, so our patrols got involved in delivering meals to the vulnerable and elderly. We were then also, our patrols were giving free roadside assistance to those who didn't have it, who were medical professionals. We were prioritising those people who were needing to get to the hospitals and to be able to help people. Our thrifty team donated cars that were, you know, hire cars that should have been travelling around Australia, but they were stuck not being used. Our Parks and Resorts people even took people in from a Parks and Resorts perspective. And then we had our corporate employees doing phone calls to the vulnerable members of the community, as well as people in isolation. So we were able to, through that powerful video, we did a call to arms effectively to our employees. And we got them to come to support and come to volunteer. We had hundreds and hundreds of people volunteer. We actually had too many people volunteering that there were the opportunities to actually help. So we were trying to like expand our opportunities to help. And from a Yammer perspective, how we utilise Yammer is we utilise Yammer with the video, but we also utilise Yammer from a two-way communication perspective. I asked the people who were volunteering to come on and to share their stories, to tell us what they were seeing, to tell us what they were experiencing. And we even had one employee who was doing calls to people who were who had travelled into the country and were, you know, in quarantine, and who were having suicidal thoughts. So we were literally seeing our employees save lives, and that was just absolutely incredible. As a result of the two-way communication, the hearts and minds, the passion to help, this campaign was actually in 2020 one of the most successful comms campaign from a Yammer perspective. So that was what we saw, but it was also not only that. Off the back of this, we now have our new motoring and membership strategy, which we are aligning all of our people to at the moment. And it is, we are the future of help. And our whole strategy is based around the future of help. We are now looking at an ongoing Project Lighthorse, which is a volunteering program on an ongoing basis. But as you can see, like we had over 2,000 total user interactions, but just the two-way communication and also the way that our group CEO, Rowan, stepped into this. Also leaders who are not traditional video Yammer leaders, like Nell Payne, she stepped into this and she was leading the charge with some great videos, great updates. We tracked the progress, we tracked how we were helping, and it just was absolutely fantastic.
Such an inspiring story, Kim. So I think you've actually got a slide where you can show, you use the SWOOP data to just show the numbers of how engaging this campaign was.
Yeah, I think it's up on screen now. I think it's been up on screen for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So everybody can see, hopefully. So all of the, so we had 39 posts. We had a huge number of interactive users, but like I said, you know, over 2,000 total user interactions. And it wasn't just one-way comms, it was really interactive. And the other piece that also let you know is I always say that our employees are our most valuable communication platform, especially from an external comms perspective. So this video then went and created an external comms campaign, the exact same video. That campaign, and then our focus on Project Lighthorse, it got media coverage, we had it all over the website. We had the greatest website hits that we've seen as a result of that. And then we also, not only that, we also then created the Everyday Heroes campaign, where we profiled our employees who were everyday heroes, and we asked people in the community to profile them as well. So it just shows that what you can do when you look at the employee experience and when you look at internal communications, the power of that to penetrate externally is absolutely huge.
Yeah, that's really incredible, Kim. What a great success story. If anyone's got any questions for Kim, please throw them in the chat, or examples of your own where, you know, maybe an internal project like this has been so powerful that it's become an external project as well, or external campaign. So if anyone's got questions for Kim, please just put them in the question and answer section and we will get to them. But Kim, just keeping an eye on the time, let's switch over to Bailey. And Bailey Cunningham is the Employee Communications Advisor at Medibank, which is Australia's largest private health insurer. Bailey, could you start just by introducing yourself and tell us what you do at Medibank and how you guys are using Yammer to connect your frontline workers? Actually, I think it's mostly Yammer rather than Teams. I know, Kim, you had a mix between Teams and Yammer as well. But yeah, Bailey, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Sharon. Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving up your lunchtime to listen to what I have to say today. So my name's Bailey. I am the Employee Communications Advisor at Medibank. And Sharon said the largest, but I'm going to say one of the largest private health insurance providers in Australia. I've been with Medibank for almost 3 years now, and in my remit, I look after all of our employee communication and engagement touch points for the two customer-facing sides of our business. So we have customer and portfolio as one half, and then on the other side is healthcare and strategy. So all up, that's about 2,000 or half of our 4,000 strong employee workforce. And as I mentioned, both of these functions do have large frontline teams. So they are the friendly faces in our retail stores through to, the trusted voices of our telehealth team that support patients as well. So just a bit of detail about both those teams so you can follow along with my story today. In customer and portfolio, we have our Medibank customer channels function, which I will spend the majority of today speaking about. And they're made up of about 1,000 people across our 72 retail stores, our call centre based in Melbourne, our digital and support teams as well as our smaller brand AHM. And then on the other side of the business, as I mentioned, is healthcare and strategy. So within healthcare and strategy, we employ about 1,500 health professionals, which I don't think many people know about, but we have people who are registered nurses, mental health counsellors, physiotherapists, OTs. We have some optometrists as well. And they provide vital health services to the Australian population, either through things like residential aged care through HealthStrong or telehealth services like 1-800-RESPECT and Quitline. Like I said, I'll spend most of my time today speaking about our Medibank customer channels team. So that's the retail and the call centre networks within customer and portfolio. And they use Yammer for loads of things. So at the moment, we're heading into a really busy time for our customer-facing teams. 1st of April is obviously premium review for a number of all of our policyholder members. And so at the moment, the team are using Yammer to share quick little facts and knowledge checks, and people can win vouchers for answering the right questions on Yammer. But we use it for lots of other different things as well, people news, reward and recognition, sharing customer feedback as well. But I think what I like most about Yammer is that it's really used, as Kim talked about, a two-way communication platform that really reflects our culture. It's open, it's collaborative, and people can really bring their whole selves to work. So just a bit of background around how we saw the Yammer usage change over COVID. This was a once in a lifetime opportunity or challenge for our customer facing teams. For the first time ever, all of our retail stores closed across the country. And so, like I said, for the first time ever, we had retail employees who were working off their kitchen benches and in their living rooms supporting customers virtually instead of face-to-face in store. And our call centre team, we shut down Medibank Place in Docklands and our entire workforce transitioned to working from home. As you can still see with my Monstera plant, I'm streaming live from Elwood in Melbourne from my living room. So our call centre teams were also, not having those water cooler conversations or being able to connect with their team members that they rely on so heavily across the desk like they used to. So we saw this huge climb in Yammer usage across the enterprise, but particularly within the Medibank customer channels Yammer group as well. So just to give you an idea of that growth, in April, the community health index of the group was sitting at 12 points, which is classified as help required to get the engagement on the group. And that spiked to 36 points, so almost triple over the period of August to April. So there were a number of proactive Yammer initiatives that we drove from a P&C point of view that contributed to this increase. So an example I'll share with you shortly is the launch of a new 3-year strategy, but also a couple of enterprise-wide initiatives as well. So sharing work from home tips, health and wellbeing tips and competitions. And we also had a dedicated live chat on Yammer with our executive leadership team, so our CEO and all of our executive leadership team. So we call those Yam Jams, if you see that referenced later on in the presentation. And that was a really fantastic way to have just this really open, honest conversation with everyone in our business, including our customer-facing teams, to address any concerns or questions. The question on everyone's mind in kind of April, May was, how long are we going to be working from home for? And the team were really, the LT, the executive leadership team, were really open, and they said, look, we don't know. We're taking our advice from the government. So keep sharing your thoughts and feedback on Yammer, and we'll get back to you with responses as soon as we know. So Sharon, that's such an intro.
I love it, Bailey. And there's so many questions I've got just from that. I mean, the idea that your retail workers were then working, like you said, off their kitchen benches and things, and still delivering the same products, and this huge spike in Yammer. I wonder whether that we did find this speaking with a lot of other organisations as well. I guess it sort of becomes the substitute for what would have been the lunchroom or the water cooler or even the office where you're sharing. But the fact that you had your leaders, you were saying all the way from your top executives to your people leaders on there. So let's explore that a little bit later. But we were going to drill down into one campaign, Bailey. And so for everybody listening, you may think this sounds quite ambitious. I did as well. But Medibank has launched, it's a 3-year business strategy specifically for frontline workers, where the strategic conversation is driven on Yammer. So it was launched in July 2020, so when everyone was still working virtually. So a 3-year program, a 3-year campaign, let's think about it, about business strategy, which is, based on conversation on Yammer. Can you go into a little bit more about it, Bailey? And also you've got some great data from SWOOP showing this massive increase in engagement over just a 4-week period.
Yeah, would love to, Sharon. So as you mentioned, yes, it was quite an ambitious project to launch a 3-year business strategy specifically for our customer channels team in the height of COVID, when everyone was adapting to working in a brand new environment. So let me take it from the start. I'll work it through a bit chronologically. But I guess the first kind of objective that I was really keen to nail internally was that it was really important that we didn't refer to it as Customer Channels 3-year strategy, because seriously, like, who's really interested in that? That's so boring. So what we did, when I say we, I worked really closely with an EX partner and my broader employee experience team. So Caitlin and I worked really closely with the customer channels leadership team, Andy and Sam, to come up with this internal working title and branding that would, be instantly recognised as being uniquely customer channels. So something that the customer channels team could really identify with as being their own. And what we landed on was calling it Better Customer Outcomes, and that, everything in Medibank has an acronym, so that came down to BCO. So BCO is all about creating simpler, better customer outcomes and empowering our frontline team, growing Medibank's business and accelerating our transition to a broader healthcare company. And it's underpinned by 4 key pillars. So those are customer experience, frontline enablement, business growth, and health focus. So another key objective from a communications point of view was not just to create awareness of this new strategy within customer channels, but create advocates for change. So better customer outcomes is all about making things easier for our customers, and in turn making Medibank an even better place to work for our customer, well, for everyone really. But to do that, some things are going to change. So it was really key to get buy-in from that frontline team right from the very beginning, and we were really conscious to make sure that our frontline teams had a voice throughout that journey as well. So we started with our Yammer campaign by seeding some excitement by sharing a teaser GIF on the customer channels Yammer page. So hopefully that will come up for you guys shortly. So the leadership team shared this GIF into the customer channels Yammer group, and then each of the LT shared that into their respective groups. So into the retail group, into the call center group, into the digital group and all of that. So we also tapped into our Yammer influencers, so using SWOOP to see who were the most influential people in the customer channels Yammer group, and proactively reaching out to them saying, hey, we've just posted this teaser GIF, and we're really keen to get lots of excitement and conversation driven from the team. Can you comment on it? Can you like it? Can you @tag or @mention some of your team members to really drive some engagement and some excitement about what's to come? So that performed really well. And hopefully, as you can see on screen now, there are 4 icons peeping underneath. So we didn't want to give the entire game away with the GIF, but we wanted people to think, oh, what's that about? I can see the colors are changing. I can see the icons are changing. And these were alluding to the 4 key pillars of BCO that I mentioned before: customer experience, frontline enablement, business growth, and health focus. So at the same time as this kind of teaser comms was rolling out, we had branded BCO EDM kind of emails and invitations hitting people's inboxes, inviting them to virtual launch events. And we held a number of launch events. It was a very busy week in July. So we had calls with our retail teams, and then we had an additional 3 calls with all of our call centre teams as well, because obviously they have to be rostered off the phones away from customers. And following those launch calls, we dedicated an entire month, so all of August 2020, to deep dive into each of these 4 BCO pillars. So week 1 was customer experience, week 2 was frontline enablement, and there were a number of activities that happened throughout the week digitally, virtually online. But one of them was on a Wednesday, we held a specific BCO pillar Yam Jam. So one of those Yammer live events that I was talking to before. And through that, Yammer became this really active channel for employees to ask questions and provide feedback in the moment. Because they were posted on Yammer and they weren't a Zoom call, if someone was rostered on during the time of the Yammer, the Yam Jam, they could post their question ahead of time and still receive a response from the leadership team. Likewise, retrospectively, after the Yam Jam was over, if they missed it, that conversation thread was still there, pinned to the top of their Yammer page, so that they could read through the conversation and contribute their thoughts afterwards as well. So that was really great from a frontline point of view. It suited them in a time and place with their roster, but it was also a really fantastic opportunity for our customer channels leadership team to directly connect into the hearts and minds of what their people were thinking and feeling at the time. It's a 3-year business strategy. Things are going to change. Are people feeling nervous about how their role might change? What are some of those potential rumours that are going around that they could nip in the bud really quickly and provide transparency and clarification for the team on the spot? This is our direction. This is the role that you're going to play in doing that. So that was a really great kind of real-time feedback, rather than sending out a survey 6 weeks later and trawling through the data. So Yammer was fantastic for that. And I guess the point that I wanted to make with that was, I think Kim mentioned something similar earlier, was that a better customer outcomes, the strategy BCO was happening with our frontline team and not to them. So across the 4 Yam Jams, I think we had about 225 comments, which was really great in the space of 4 weeks. And then, sorry, Sharon?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, Bailey, it's great to hear the frontline workers so engaged. What was the perspective of the executives as well? Were they happy to jump in on this? Is that something you had to coach them through, or could they, you know, you had the stats there to show them how powerful these Yam Jams were and other sorts of engagements. So I'm just thinking from, that's not the frontline workers, but, you know, with that connection, what was the response from your executives and leaders?
Yeah, Andy and his leadership team were just totally buzzed by how successful the first Yam Jam went. And, you know, these things don't happen by accident. We set up calls with the LT team to make sure that everyone's answering the right questions, and you kind of facilitate that in the background for the first one. You go out to a few of your top influencers saying, hey, tell your teammates about the Yam Jam on Wednesday, make sure you add some questions. So there is some facilitation from our side to kind of get the ball rolling, but they were just so successful that first week, and once people kind of got the ball rolling, they were really keen to contribute their thoughts, and the LT were just so pumped by how open the frontline teams were being with them. Like I said before, it wasn't all necessarily positive comments that were being shared. There were some concerns from people. You know, part of customer experience, one of the initiatives to roll out of that is to drive a lot more of that digital self-service through the Medibank app and our Medibank website. So reducing those low interaction phone calls, like updating addresses and that kind of stuff into the call centre, and driving that through a digital self-service. So there were some concerns from the team, but yeah, the LT were just, yeah, super pumped with how on board the team got, and really hearing from people that we hadn't heard from before in a Yammer forum. They were really encouraged by that.
We've got quite a few questions, so thanks people that have been asking questions. I think can I just jump in with one, because it's great to get the senior leaders involved. Someone's posted that getting desktop people using Yammer is something that they've managed to do, but their frontline people are in the cars a lot of the time, out on the road. And there's, you know, this older demographic, these 50-year-old males. I can talk about 50-year-old males who some will struggle, you know, to sort of adapt to new technology, I guess. What tricks, Kim, Bailey, do you have for sort of convincing people why to go on Yammer in the first place when they're on the road?
I might let Kim answer that one. We don't have anyone out on the road. All of our people are desk bound.
That's right.
Yeah, so I guess it's not just relevant to people who are, you know, out on the road, but it could be, it's relevant to a lot of industries and a lot of frontline workers. Probably 2 things. Okay, Sharon and I were discussing the other day. At the end of the day, to live in Australia, you need to use MyGov. So because to do your tax return, you have to go onto the ATO and you have to use MyGov. So you need to have some level of digital literacy to be able to live. We know that that's the case, but we also wanted to support our people with helping them to become more, to use the channels and to give them a go, right? And that hasn't been easy. That's been an ongoing thing, you know, like the team has been looking at this for years and years before I even came to the NRMA. And they've done some incredible work, which is what set us up for success when COVID did hit. But I'll give you one really key example. It's called grill badges. So for those of you that are not car people, one of the most prestigious things that exist from an NRMA past 100 years perspective is grill badges. So they're grill badges that go on your car. And we have like grill badges back from like dating back so many years, and it's almost like it's a prestige sign, right? And so we, as part of our centenary year, which was last year, which we had all of these great Bright Futures events, community stuff, everything planned as part of our centenary. Obviously that changed a fair bit when all of our events got cancelled. But we had grill badges that all of our patrols were going to get. Now, we made that announcement on Yammer. You can bet your bottom dollar that all of our patrols very quickly knew about that they were going to get a grill badge. And you can bet that they were like, how did you find out about it? Well, I went on this. So I think that the thing is that we know, like even with us on Facebook, with us on Instagram, we are willing to interact and engage with these things more if there's the what's in it for me, which is what I talked about as our four-step kit. So if there's something in it for me, like a grill badge, well, I'm going to jump on, I'm going to interact, but then while I'm there, I'm also going to have a look at other things. But I think that that's the important thing is that and it's also a challenge that we face is so a lot of our information doesn't capture their attention and doesn't really connect with them. So how do we make it so that everything is connective and so that when they come on board, there is that experience, but also setting them up for success. You know, my dad's a university lecturer, and 2 weeks ago, he got given a new class to teach online, and they gave him Teams and just goes, there you go, here's some videos, get ready for the next day. And, you know, he's 70 now. And so it's really important that we're setting them up for success along the way.
And that's a great to incentivize. I think it's great, Kim. Bailey, I've got another question here. When people are actually on the job, so in call centres actually working, there is some people feel that Yammer and these other tools can't be sort of used while they're actually working. I mean, do you have a view on sort of how to manage people that are on the job at a particular time and then how Yammer fits in?
Yeah, that actually leads in beautifully to my second example. Thanks, Mark. So yeah, totally get it. Call centres are busy. They have 50 million screens that they already need to reference and look at to complete their jobs. So why would you want to add another screen that they have to look and check for information? So very conscious of that as a challenge. And the example I wanted to share was we recently have a new head of call centre, Kate, join our team. And she was really conscious of not just establishing another newsletter for the sake of it and bombarding people's email addresses, but actually dedicating Yammer as her channel to communicate with her team. So I think that's the first thing, is that you know, you've got to find out what your purpose for Yammer is. If people want to use it to share photos of their babies, then that's fine. But if they also want to use it as a source of truth and news and to be kept up to date with what's happening across the business and thought leadership and all that kind of stuff, I think as individuals, you really need to figure out what your purpose is for Yammer, because if you don't have that and you're just doing it because you have to, then you're not going to use it. So one of the really nice initiatives that Kate was keen to introduce with her team was Wellness Wednesdays and Thank You Thursdays. Really simple kind of concepts. So every Wednesday, Kate and her call centre extended leadership team share something on Yammer that they've done in the last week to put their health and wellbeing first. So people share photos and videos of, you know, their walking meetings, finishing a puzzle that they started in lockdown, playing with their pets, you know, just getting outside for 2 minutes for a cup of tea and getting some vitamin D. So all these really simple things that people are doing to put their health and wellbeing first, they're sharing that on their call centre Yammer page every Wednesday. And I was actually having a look at the stats just yesterday, and you can see this huge spike in activity by time at 8 o'clock every Wednesday in anticipation of these posts, which is really nice to see. It's not quite a hot topic just yet. We've got a few other big campaigns happening, but I am confident that in the next couple of weeks, #Wellness Wednesday will be trending as a hot topic. And then the other initiative that I mentioned was Thank You Thursday. So again, a similar concept, once a month, every Thursday, using the praise post in Yammer to call out some really fantastic work that's been happening within the call centre, whether it's team-based stuff or whether people have been working on a project outside of the broader call centre team, or they just want to recognise the amazing work that their colleagues are doing to support our customers and each other. So that's we've only had one of those so far because we've only been going for a month, but that's been well received by the team as well. So maybe starting off with some kind of, again, like what Kim said, what's in it for me, some health and well-being. Everyone's got something that they can share, that they're putting their health and well-being first, and everyone loves to receive and give feedback. So something like Thank You Thursdays might draw people in initially.
And Bailey, do you think that because that was led by the leader, by the group manager, I think you said it was, that gave permission, I guess, for people to be on Yammer to look at these posts?
Absolutely, yeah. So Kate is brand new to Medibank, and I think one of her first posts was her flat on her back with her kettlebells like this in her lounge room after doing an exercise. So if you can see your leader being, vulnerable to a sense and bringing her whole self to work, then yeah, that absolutely gives the permission to the teams to share something similar. Not that they need permission, but it's a safe space. If they can see that behaviour being role modelled, then it's safe for them to do so as well.
I guess it goes back to what you were talking about with the culture that's within Medibank and fostering that culture, starting with your leaders and encouraging people to bring, like you say, bring your whole self to work, and ultimately making it a better place for your employees to work at.
Absolutely.
Mark, I know you were going to tell some stories from St John WA. We've got a few minutes, or do you want to? Do you want to just start by sharing one that was during the pandemic, and believe it or not, the paramedics, I think, still do a lot of paper and pen taking notes, and somebody was using an iPad to take their notes when they were, well, I'll hand over to you. You tell the story and how it was communicated on Yammer and it's made a difference at St John WA.
Sure. So we worked, well, it's now a year ago, since exactly a year ago, that St John Ambulance, which is the biggest ambulance geographically service in the world, they basically used Yammer during the start of the pandemic as a communication tool to get out to all the ambulance stations and ambulance and medical staff across Western Australia. They did a lot of things really effectively, I think, in making it Yammer very much a work purpose thing, because it was actually the way to go get COVID information. One of the ones that I remember early on, the one you're referring to, was one of the ambulance staff actually sharing their hack about how they use their iPad to take their notes and then share them back into the system electronically. So that was a tip for other people that had iPads within the ambulance service of how to do that, and that's a great example, I think, of people in the front line actually sharing the how-tos. There was also some things shared around personal protective equipment. PPE was, I don't even remember, we go back a year ago, was in relatively short supply, and it would all hit very urgently. So there was sort of alternatives, where to source things in local communities, etc. was definitely one of the other things that I remember early on being shared on Yammer. So I think it's a case where obviously with ambulance drivers, sometimes they have a bit of downtime, but they were actually using that to find out information or to share with others, and I think that's a great example.
Yeah, we've also got another great example where leaders used Yammer as a communication tool directly to the frontline workers. So just try and picture everyone, the state of Western Australia, I think it's something like 20 times the size of England. It's one of this world's biggest states, 10 times the size of Texas type thing. And so St John, WA looks after all the ambulance and first aid services across the entire state. So just imagine all these rural communities that you've got to give information to quickly. So we'll probably all remember a few weeks ago, Perth went into a snap lockdown, and within hours, everything was shut down. So your frontline workers were one of the ones impacted pretty quickly, and people wanted information quickly. Can you share, Mark, how St John, WA got that message out within minutes to their people?
Well, I really like this because Paul, the medical director at St John, was heavily involved in the beginning. So when they launched Yammer, as was Michelle, their CEO, that put out an initial video to sort of launch Yammer, which got really good traction, as you know from your SWOOP stats. It always works well if you share a video. So this last lockdown, Paul, it was a Sunday, I believe. I think he was out for a walk and literally got the notification that there were going to be a 5-day lockdown. And he literally went, I want to let everyone know, he switched on the video feature. You can do something, for 3 minutes, a quick video, and he actually shared something with everyone to say, I can't give you all the details now, but let you know we are going to go back into lockdown mode for a few days. This is a couple of, the steps to go through. We've been through this before. So he actually shared that and say, we'll keep you posted as we get more detail of what to actually do tomorrow. So he actually used that that direct medium to talk to the front line immediately, rather than sort of wait when you've got everything sort of crafted in some sort of official announcement. And I think that's I think increasingly leaders will use this immediacy, even in a crisis. It's those gaps, those big gaps, become a vacuum where people, sort of trying to make things up as to what to do or what to go on. So I think a bit of early clarification and short, sharp videos is something that they've used very effectively.
And shows that authenticity. Mark, I'm just looking in the Q&A. There's lots of questions. We're going to try to get to some of them, but here's one for Kim and for Bailey. How do you convince people who are already having these conversations on other channels like Facebook groups, WhatsApp, etc., to move those conversations to Yammer, or if it's appropriate, to Teams, and especially if they have fears of expressing work concerns on a work channel? Really good question.
Am I on mute? Hopefully not.
You're not.
That's a really good question. And look, we do have a similar situation at Medibank. A lot of our digital teams use Slack as a communication channel because it works for them. And I did actually say to someone the other day, I was like, so are you still checking in on Yammer? How are you, communicating with the rest of the business? And she said that, yes, they are still, when they have kind of big announcements and product launches and all that kind of stuff, that they are still sharing that that news on Yammer. But yeah, it's a tricky one, and I guess it kind of comes back to the value and what they see in using Yammer for. What's their purpose? What's going to get them there? What's going to keep them there? At Medibank, as I mentioned, we have a really kind of open and transparent culture, which is fantastic, but I totally appreciate that that's not the case for some corporations as well. And, it could be a really bad career move to express your concerns on a public forum like that. So I guess, you'd have to kind of temperature check whether that would be appropriate or not for the employee. And maybe you could use a more private Yammer group or direct conversation in Yammer to begin with. I don't know, I haven't answered that very well. Kim, have you got better examples?
No, I think your points that you make are really spot on, Bailey, and it really just does come down to culture. Like I was speaking to, to a colleague and she works in an organization that is like command and control, and it's really quite an aggressive culture. And so she was saying on Yammer, how that plays out is people like attacking each other on Yammer. So effectively the culture you have in the organization is what comes through your channels. And so that's why it's really important, I believe, that communications works with, our in our organisation, our people and culture team, and especially we've got a sensational team that's looking across the organisation at changing culture. And so I think that's one important piece. But the other piece is also I did a little comms survey just because I was curious. I actually asked people, I did a survey and I said, all right, how do you receive information within the NRMA? And I got them to rate, on Yammer and, and especially with our patrol workforce, that was rated very low, okay? They mainly said that they get their information from their manager or from the grapevine, right? Which we know is the case. And then I actually asked them a series of questions where I asked them how they get information outside of work. And, how do they, and then the response was through, by looking online at news.com, by Facebook, by interactions, by text, and, and so what you could see was, they were doing it in their personal lives, but not in their professional lives. And so I think that was also a learning experience for them to kind of go, hey, like, if I want to get things out of this, maybe I need to look at what this looks like. And so what we've done is we've created at the NRMA, we've created a way how we communicate guide, and we've got what exclusive communication looks like, which is email. Okay, email is just one-way comms. And then we've looked at what does inclusive communication look like, and that's Teams and Yammer and having those two-way conversations. And so myself and the entire comms team and all of our people and culture team and all of our leaders are really committed to how do we get more inclusive communication across the organisation. But that also does start from the top, and we've got some really sensational leaders on board for that and championing that.
Can I just share quickly, I can't remember who said it on the last SWOOP forum, but it's really stuck with me, and I think it's really a really nice line that you can kind of use to encourage your leaders as well, was that leaders need to be interested, not necessarily interesting. And that just stuck with me, and I thought it's such a fabulous thing to kind of latch onto, because if your leaders are a bit nervous about communicating on Yammer, they just have to say hi or ask a question or dish out a like or something. Just be interested, not necessarily interesting. I thought that was fantastic.
That's great. And I think it also talks to, like, as people do get more on Yammer and they're people who might not normally be, encouraging them and actually praising them and getting them involved in and actually acknowledging that. And we've seen that work really well as well.
Yeah, now I love that line too, Bailey. I've used it in many sessions. It's a gem, and we're still trying to find out the Kai and I are still trying to find out what the original origin of that where we first heard it.
I think it was ANZ Bank from memory.
We'll just take it for SWOOP analytics. There we go. We'll run with that.
Yes, definitely.
So look, I'm conscious of time. We haven't got to all the questions. Can I say that we'd certainly at Engage Squared be happy to talk to you about Yammer and some of these questions, and I know Matt Dodds and Mel and other people here will also help, and obviously we've got Emily and Sharon from SWOOP, so thank you very much for a really interesting, engaging session. It's been very inspiring. I'm going to let you, as our guests, Kim and Bailey, have a last final comments, or can you got any final suggestion for people when they're dealing with their frontline?
Because we're over time, let me just keep it nice and simple. We are people. human connection is how we actually connect our employees, and look at the focus on the what's in it for me, and connecting your people and their hearts and their minds and aligning them to what your business is trying to achieve, and cut the bullshit and start the barbecue.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Kim. There you go.
Thanks, Bailey. And Sharon, do you have any final observations?
How could I possibly top Kim's comment there? No, I'll leave it with all. Cut the BS.